Everybody's here,
Woo woo.
alive, excited, full of energy, ready to learn about overcoming buyer reluctancy in today's market. I'm super excited. I'm your executive math coach, Aaron Hurd. I have the great luxury of having Miss Kari Wyrsch, arguably the number one buyer specialist in all of the land,
Oh my gosh.
here to teach us all the things about overcoming buyer reluctancy in today's market. Now, many of you guys may or may not know who Kari Wyrsch is, but Kari Wyrsch is a extreme buyer specialist. I'm going to say extreme because you're doing more business per person in your small buyer division than most buyers agents can even fathom of doing. With your best year being 264 closed transactions, also having a 240 closed transaction unit year as a buyer agent. I mean, holy smoke! Can you imagine doing over 200 transactions as a buyer's agent in your market? Yep, it's true, ladies and gentlemen. It can be done, and you can do it too. Kari here is going to explain overcoming the buyer reluctancy based on what she's exploring in today's market, what's going on. And I'm just going to be your hype man. I'm here to just like hype it up. Let's go. What do you got to say, Kari?
Yeah, so I'm super excited. I know that this has been a hot topic just because the market has been consistently ever changing. And I feel like there's this kind of like facade of fourth quarter, right? And where everybody's like, I'm going to wait till spring, or I'm going to wait till after the beginning of the new year and everything. And to me, spring starts January 2nd. And I think that it's really, really important to be able to have conversations around some of those objections, and be able to battle some of those. So, we basically kind of came up with the top five that we're kind of hearing. And we just wanted to kind of give you some tips and tricks and give you some great conversations that you could be having so that you're able to battle any of those objections.
That's right. And so while we get the slide deck turned on, Carlos, if you want to turn that on, go ahead and post in the chat who you are, where you're from, and anything else you want to share. We'd love to engage with you and get to know who you guys are as agents in the marketplace. It's a great place to build referral networks and learn who other people are that are participating in what you're learning today as well. So fill the chat up. Let's see you.
All right, awesome. So, I think that basically we tend to see a lot of people that are dragging their feet right now, especially with interest rates. I know that a lot of times people are having a really hard time with having a conversation around the interest rates. And what I would love to say is that always ask the question if somebody asks, if they say, I'm just waiting for the interest rates to go down. Aaron, that's so interesting. And I certainly appreciate why you would want to do that. So what about the interest rate is concerning to you? Right?
It's just so expensive right now.
Okay. So is there an interest rate that if it were to go to right now that you would be in the market to buy?
Well, I mean, it just got to be less.
Okay, so what's less? Right?
It's a good question.
This is what you're going to find is that they can't answer the question because they don't know, you guys. People don't know what they don't know. They just say what they think that is the correct answer. And so I think that, the big saying that we had a lot this year was marry the house, date the rate. And so if I can show you a way that your monthly payment can make sense right now and we can start building equity, doesn't that mean that we should meet right now to discuss your home purchase, right? It's a way of having a conversation around it to where you're building value as the professional, but then, you're also finding out their motivation, right?
Yep. 100%. Now, interest rates are obviously important because they dictate what the monthly payments are. Though buyers really care about what the monthly payments are, right?
Right.
Like that's the name of the game. And if you remember in Shift, Gary did the math for everybody, and they said for every 1% of interest rate, that adjusts a buyer's affordability by 5%. I'm sorry, 10%.
Right.
And so if a $300,000 home today at 7% is this monthly payment, and if it goes down to 6%, well, now they can afford $330,000 for the same monthly payment. Last week, you guys all probably know this already, but there was a big reduction. It's almost 0.5% reduction, which means a 5% affordability has made an adjustment in your market. Do you and your buyers know that?
I think that's really, really important. Do you and your buyers know that? And I think that the big thing is too, is that the rate is always possibly going to go down, but at least you know for the next 30 years that this interest rate that you can be locked in at 6.5 or 7%. But what happened? It dropped down and it's at 6.125. And what if it goes down again? Then you can refinance, right? And so we're going to talk about rents in just a little bit, but making sure that people understand the value of marrying the house, even though the rate may be a little bit higher, we're just dating it, right? Because if it goes down, we can bring our payments down.
That's right. That's right. And I think as a strategy when working with these buyers, it's really important to create awareness over what that monthly payment is and how important it is to them. And then as they fluctuate, because every day they're different. And if you're not looking at like mortgagenewsdaily.com as a resource, I would highly encourage it just to open it up every day, see what the national rates are, if they went up or went down that day, and then communicating with those hot buyers that are proactively engaged and having a hard time necessarily finding the perfect home. If the or when the interest rates reduce a little bit, you can then call your buyer and say, well, the interest rate average dropped a little bit today, which means that we can increase your purchase power a little bit today and see if there's more inventory at this slightly higher price, because your monthly payment's going to be the same as if you were getting the higher rate that you were approved at. And that's mortgagenewsdaily.com, Dante. Mortgagenewsdaily.com. So check it out. Just be on the top, be on the ball there.
All right, Carlos, let's hit the next one. So as I mentioned a minute ago, rents are going up. And so just making sure that you're able to have a conversation with them about why they should start building equity now, right? So if I come in and I do a strategy session with somebody, it always is almost the same conversation. They're like, we've been renting and we didn't realize it. And next thing I know, I looked up and we've been living here for 6 years. And then you start having the conversation around round numbers, $2,000 a month, right? I don't know what your market is, but figure out what your average rent is in your market. So at $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. That is not going towards anything. We're not building equity. We're not building wealth. You know, you're paying somebody else's rent. And so I think being able to have those conversations about the rents and what people are missing out on is super important. But then, you know, for them also to understand and be able to have a conversation around how that works. So if they say I'm in a lease until May, you're able to have a really great conversation about this is what our plan is going to be for when we're going to go look at properties and when we're going to put something under contract so we don't have a double payment, right? And so it kind of brings you value during that strategy session so that they understand that you're looking out for their best interest and them making a forward decision when they're buying their next house, right? Or they're buying their first house.
Yeah, and this is a little bit getting in the weeds, though. A lot of people don't really understand how mortgages are paid versus rents are paid. You got to remember, mortgages are paid for the month that you used it because the government can't charge you on interest of something that you haven't used. And so those closing costs, prorates, prepaids, oftentimes, if you close at the beginning of the month, well, your mortgage payment isn't for that month. And then you're going to have to use the following month. And then the next month is when your mortgage payment is due for the prior month that you just used it. So a lot of these timelines can be upwards of like 60 days before your first mortgage payment, which is significant to a buyer that might be scrapping up every last dollar they can for their down payment. And they're looking at like, well, where's the breathing room here?
Right.
Rents are paid for the month you're going to use it. Rents are paid, or mortgages are paid in the month that you just used it. And so it's a good understanding around that modeling because, again, the money is really important, especially for some first-time home buyers in the market. But the $2,000 a month that you mentioned, Kari, is not created equal, is it? Rent payment versus mortgage payment. Why?
Well, I mean, with your mortgage payment, you're paying your principal, your interest, your taxes, your insurance, and your mortgage insurance in most cases.
Yeah.
And so whenever people look at rent, it's just rent, right? They don't think about all of those additional things that's going towards, and they don't get the benefits for tax purposes, right?
That's right.
That's a really big deal at the end of the year, whenever you can, offset some of that depreciation or pay your taxes and get the benefit of the interest, I think is really important.
You got it. And most of our clients are not independent contractors like us knuckleheads, right? And so they are W-2 employees. They are paying taxes normally, like most people do. And so at the end of the year, most people aren't necessarily stressed on like, am I going to owe taxes? A lot of people think I'm going to get tax money back because I've already been contributing towards it. And when you acquire real estate and you now have interest payments, you get to deduct all that and write that interest payment off, which actually could give them additional tax credits at the end of their year. Now, they need to consult with their tax professionals, of course. We're not giving legal advice, and yet the reality is the payments are not created equal. The monthly is still the same, and yet they're benefiting greatly from this directly, in addition to the potential of increased valuation and equity proceeds from the asset that they own. So just be aware of that.
Well, and I mean, what we've seen, I mean, especially in the past 3 years, I know specifically in my area, I'm in the Springfield, Missouri market. So $2,000 a month is actually a really high rent payment, but I know that we're talking to people all over. And I think that for me, our team specifically, we have a lot of spouses that are property management companies. And so I've talked to them, and like they have these slated out on when they're going to be doing those rate increases. And so, I mean, a lot of times we'll have people and they'll come in and it's like, hey, what are we meeting for today? Like, what's the whole point of it? Our rent's going up. Our landlord's raising our rent and it's significant, you guys. It's not like a $5, rate increase on their rentals. They're a couple $100, and it's pushing them out of the market. And then they're like, if I can get my monthly payment to be where it can be and start building equity, that's what we're supposed to do, right? As a buyer's agent, we are options people. We are there to come to the strategy session to be able to give our clients options. And so being able to have a really great conversation around rents and why it's important now to start building that wealth, I think is so important.
So important. Let's move to the next slide, Carlos.
All right. So I feel like, this is kind of the elephant in the room. I know that a lot of us do a lot of business, especially in the fourth quarter. And then as interest rates have gone up, maybe some of those buy sale deals haven't really been that fun, because a lot of times right now with the interest rates, especially getting up to 8, it's people moving because they have to, right? But this is the one thing that never changes. And I think that I've had a lot of people say, well, in fourth quarter, people are waiting till after Christmas, or they're waiting till after January. And I'm like, no, they're just out scripting you, right? But the reasons for people moving, it's all about these things. And so I love the 10 Ds. I wanted to put it on here. It's debt, divorce, downsize, death, diapers, desk. So relocations, probably diamonds, degrees. We hear that a lot. I want to be in warmer weather. Difficulties in dumpster. So, downsizing, or they're needing to remodel and they don't want to do those things. So just being able to know what those motivations are, and then asking a lot of questions about that so that you can meet and exceed their home ownership goals. Some of these are really fun, right? The diamonds are really fun. Downsizing sometimes is fun because they're relocating to a different area. Getting married, school, all of those things. So just understanding what your buyer's motivation is. And so that way you can basically categorize those people to make sure that you're meeting them where they are, right? You're not calling them 3 times a week if, they're not moving till school's out because they can't, right? We've got to meet our people where we are. And so making sure you understand the reasons for their motivation, I think is important.
Yeah, I agree. And there's some questions in regards to dumpster. I like to think of dumpster as, look, they're either dumpster diving, right? Or they're down in the dumps. And John says, dumpster comes after the divorce. Yep. Look, something is happening.
I think of dumpster as, like if you drive by and you see a garage sale, you're like, oh, they're getting ready to move. Or they've got dumpsters out because they're getting ready to do a big, remodel to get the house ready to sell. So I think of dumpster a little bit different, but I love all the different, coming soon. Dumpster
Yeah, that's great.
coming soon in the yard. I totally agree with that. That's what
The 10 Ds has been going around our industry for a while, so it's important that we bring this to your attention. But the relevance is not around each of the Ds or being clever on having 10 Ds. The reality is Kari, how do you help somebody truly achieve their goal, or how do you create urgency with somebody if you don't know what their real motivation is?
Well, and I think that that's the whole point of why the strategy session is so important, is that, we want to slow things down to speed things up. And, if I'm going to know that someone's 6 months out or know that they're super casual, I think is really, really important, just because I don't want to be calling them being like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. But if I've got somebody that's like, hey, I start a new job and my start date is February 1st, I'm going to be calling you every single day going, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Right.
And so it's making sure that the agent understands what the buyer's motivation is. And those things are all different. I mean, even with, the death, I mean, you've got to know what that timeline is. Right. When we're dealing with sellers, are we dealing with probate? Are we dealing with judges? Making sure that the buyer understands that timeline. This may take 3 months, right?
Yeah.
We have to make sure that we're understanding the motivation for our buyer, but then being able to meet their expectation whenever they're ready to buy.
Yeah. And if you want to find urgent buyers, learn what their motivation is. And so ask the questions. These are just references. Like, all of these are really good. It's really good fuel for people to take action. Like, if money's an issue, they might be looking at selling their real estate. If they're going through a divorce, they may be considering it. It's just the fuel or the catalyst that causes an action. And these are common. They're not all of the reasons. Though if you get a sign call and, old Betty Sue says, can you just tell me the price of this cute little house on 123 Main Street? And if you just simply give the price and, assume that Betty Sue's a buyer, you're missing the whole point. You're missing everything. We get to learn, well, what's causing you to call on real estate for sale right now in this market? Well, we're thinking about downsizing. Help me understand that. What's important to you about downsizing? Well, my husband just had hip surgery and we're in a 2-story home. Oh, got it. So you're not just looking for a house, you're looking for a 1-level home so your husband can have a higher quality of life with his new hip replacement. Is that right? Yes, that's right. So it really sounds like we need to meet so I can learn all the intricacies of what's important to you and finding you the right property, because I want to make sure that you guys are able to have the life that you want in the home that you want. What afternoons or evenings be best for you to meet with me? I never even talk about the price. It's not relevant. The house may or may not work. And yet that's a buyer that has a true need that if we didn't ask the questions, we would never know. And now we can create real urgency, because now if you're choosing to not make a decision on buying this 1-level home, what's more important, that little bit of a payment or your husband's quality of life?
Mm-hmm.
Help me understand this, because that is important, isn't it? Dig deep on the motivation, everybody. This is one of the big catalyst for being a world-class buyer specialist, is you get to learn what's truly causing people to take action right now, what's truly important to them. And it's not just a surface level, because it's I want to be a homeowner. Tell me more about that.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right,
let's keep going.
So buyer expectations. So this is something that in the buyer agent mastery for MAPS coaching that we do a deep dive in. And so it's one of my favorite things that I love talking about is a strategy session. And the buyer expectations right now have changed, right? And I think it's really important for them to understand what the market's doing and what this market benefits them, right? Once upon a time, we were writing properties, over asking, acceleration clauses, appraisal gaps, no inspections, not asking for anything. Seller, you pick the closing date. I mean, we were just whatever you want to get the house.
We'll
right?
pay for your kids' college. We'll do it all.
I mean,
Where did all this money come from, by the way?
I wrote cats in contracts, I wrote dogs in contracts. I mean, it was crazy. So,
Crazy.
now it's like they don't know, again, what they don't know. So whenever they come in and they say, what's the market like? And I think that you have to really understand your market and know what it is, because for us in our market, it's different in every price point. And so I've got to set that expectation up of, based off their price point, what that inventory is looking like, days on the market. And then what we're able to do now, right? We're able to negotiate price. We're able to negotiate inspections. We're able to maybe ask for some personal property. Find out what our closing time frame is that works best for us. And I think that it's really kind of given buyers a really good feeling, right? That normalcy that we have coming back in the market, where they're not just being beat down and just being told like no for everything. Sellers are willing to negotiate and making sure that the buyer understands that that's a possibility again. I think that for me, it's been kind of refreshing because I've had so many buyers that were in the market and they just got beat down and they weren't able to win any offers, maybe because of the type of loan that they had, and calling some of those buyers back up and saying like, hey, like we've got a chance now, like let's get back into the market, and getting them back excited. So the expectation of the buyer is, I think, more exciting now than it's been in the past couple of years, and making sure that you can explain that to them on why now is a great time, I think is so important.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate something that you said earlier in regards to the context of expectations, is that we want to match our actions to your motivation. And so sitting down and understanding your goals, your urgency, your expectations of what the deal is that you get. Because if the market is like, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and we have had a 102% average list price versus sales price. And some buyers just aren't able or willing to pay 2% over the listed price on average for the home that they love. And so we have to set expectations on certain inventory we may not be able to show to you because you're not capable of affording that inventory based on the speed in which things are selling. So we're going to have a different strategy around finding you some older or off market inventory to allow you to negotiate appropriately. But we're going to match our actions as your agent representative towards your motivation. So we're not going to call you every single day unless you're at the risk of being homeless in a short period of time. We're like, let's go. But I just wanted to make sure that we touch on that as well. That's a big part of the expectations conversation.
Well, and the expectations is also, guys, the strategy session and why it's so important, because we're getting that loyalty agreement signed. We are going to go look at property with people that are committed to us and that we are committed to, right? That's why I call it a loyalty agreement. This basically means that I'm going to be loyal to you and you're going to be loyal to me, and you're hiring me to work on your behalf because I should have shown my value and I'm a professional, right?
Yeah. Lucas said buy side, best side, first thing right out of the gates, right? And I believe that wholeheartedly too. It's leads, listings, and leverage in the MREA. And yet listings is buyer agency agreements. That's our listing. It's an agreement that we have as far as the triangle goes for building out a big business. And Kari's dominated that. She's a listing specialist for the buyer division. And that's the name of the game.
That's right. I love that. That's right. Get those loyalty agreements signed. It's so important. Okay. I think next one. So yeah, less competition. I mean, I think that, right now, I was talking to Aaron earlier, and it's, depending on price range, there's just not as much competition. And I always say, the spring market starts January 2nd. For our area in Springfield, Missouri, it does get really, really cold here. But I always tell any clients or sellers, I'm like, if someone is coming through your house and they're going to bundle their kids up and them up, and they're going to go out in the snow or whatever the weather's doing that day, they're
that's a buyer.
Serious. They are very serious.
That's a buyer. Just like a car salesman sitting there on a rainy day, somebody comes onto that lot to look at cars. They're like, yes.
Yeah.
They've got a buyer. Now, here's the thing in this market, and this happens every single year. We've got the seasonality, right? I feel like that's a 4-letter S word in our industry, though. There is there's things slow down. The average days on market historically always goes up because the speed in which sellers are willing to negotiate or whatever, just things are happening in the marketplace. So you have a delayed reaction. Those buyers can come in with urgency and cause those sellers to be willing to negotiate and most likely negotiate better terms today than in the spring when there's a flood of new inventory and there's a lot more activity showing up. The sellers go, why would I negotiate when I have this abundance showing up?
Mm-hmm.
So it's take action now while, strike while the iron's hot,
I love that. I love that. And I think that buyers right now, I mean, they're ready and they're ready to be in something quickly. And I would also say, most people, even if it's March, they always want to know what the house looks like whenever it's dressed up, like, for Christmas or the holidays and all of that kind of stuff. It's kind of one of the perks. I mean, I always remember going and looking at property in February and people being like, oh, the tree's going to be here, right? So it's kind of like a little jewelry box that you get to walk people through. It makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, whenever I hear that, I remember in Bold, they teach us logic makes people think and emotions make people act. And when you get in that house and you see, like in the spring and summertime, it's like, can you picture the backyard barbecues that you're having and, sipping on cold PBR over there with your buddy, whatever you're doing, or the Christmas tree and having the Christmas gatherings or the holiday gatherings. And those are the things that cause and evoke an emotion. And those emotions do cause people to take action. So don't sleep on it. Understand what their motivation is and get them into properties to cast the vision. It's important. I'm watching the time closely, Kari. We've got about 4 minutes left in our budgeted time. So I want to make sure we respect that.
Well, I always tell my buyers, if you want to sleep on it, you're not going to sleep in it. So let's make a decision today. So
hashtag Kari Wyrsch. You don't want to sleep on it, you're not going to sleep in it.
True. Well, and I think that, it's always frustrating to me to hear that there's so many objections during the holiday season, because you guys, they're the same objections that have been around for 10 years, 15 years. And all it is it just means that somebody's out scripting you, because there's a solution for everyone. We never want to embed an objection to anyone. We always want to ask questions and go 3 deep so that we can find out what their real objection is, because oftentimes they don't really have one.
Yeah, one of my mentors early on in my career said, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Stop injecting your opinion on somebody else's home. So they're touring the home and they say, well, what do you think about this? Just turn the question back on them. Say, that's a great question. Tell me, what do you think about this? And they go, well, I think blah, 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 blah. You go, okay. Right? Like, you don't have to answer the question. You're not buying it. They are.
I love it.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next slide, Carlos. I think we're about ready to wrap this up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So be sure and get registered for the Mega Buyer Agent. April 11th, 2024. We're trying to come up with some new material. Also be looking out for Family Reunion. We're looking to do some type of buyer agent mastermind that hopefully we'll be able to be sending everybody some great information about.
They're always so fun.
Jen, there's so much fun. Jen Davis and I are wanting to do a bonus class from here. And we basically want to focus on just some additional bonus information. And then also, how professional are we? And so we've got another fun little mastermind that we're thinking that we'll do in January. So anybody that is registered currently for this today, which I hope you got a ton of value out of, you will be getting a registration once we have that day scheduled and time figured out.
So Kari and I talked before this. We both have just a few minutes after. We only had 30 minutes budgeted, but we have a few minutes after. If you'd like to come off mute, share your ahas, ask questions, whatever you like, we'd love to honor your time. So if you need to jump off, totally cool. Do that. If you want to hang out and ask a few questions or just share a few ahas, we'd love to hear from you guys as well. So come off mute or raise your hand. Let's see what you got to say. Always that fun silence.
Uh-huh.
I have teenagers, so it's okay. We can sit in awkward silence.
Hi, my name is Dante, and I have a question to ask. Have you guys done workshops as a great form to educate and also build clienteles, like first-time home buyer workshops or anything like that?
So I coach a lot of agents that have done that as a part of their business model and have had great successes through it. It may not be necessarily Kari's personal business model, and yet it's a wonderful resource to offer to your community and your sphere if that's how you want to move your business forward. Sure, Dante.
I've done buyer seminars, and I think that the best ones that I've ever done are always in person. And I bring on a key person. So I have a lender there and maybe an insurance person. I try to make it very surface level and not to get too far into the weeds. And if they have a lot more questions, then I'm basically scheduling an appointment for them to come into the office and we'll do a full strategy session so I can get more clarity. But you can do those at coffee shops. That's always a really, really fun spot where it's like open and fun and safe. Registration usually is through eBrite, and just make it fun, but keep it very surface level.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks.
Mhm.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I have a question for Kari. I'm just wondering, like, when do you get your buyers to sign their buyer's agreements? Like, at what point do you present it? And yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that question. So basically, whenever a lead comes in, we have an ISA department. So the ISA actually is the one, and they take them through, just are they qualified? And then they come and they meet with me in person. That meeting is called a strategy session. And I usually try to keep it between 40 and 45 minutes long. And from the very beginning, it's all about them and getting all of their information. I call it a buyer DNA. And then I take them through our team, how our team works, and then talk a little bit about contract to close. And at the very, very end of that meeting, I say, I think I have a pretty good idea of exactly what it is that you're looking for, and I'm ready to get started for you. I have my loyalty agreement here ready for you to sign. This basically means that I'm going to be loyal to you and you're going to be loyal to me. Are you ready to sign this today? And so they always say yes. And so I go through the paperwork and I circle everything that's on there. And then they usually we get the signatures done right then.
Yeah, and I just want to share that Kari's class upcoming was what, March start? I mean, it's or April. It's way out there. She has some bonus classes coming up, though. For the $198 registration, it's a 6-week program, and Kari deep dives into these alongside with Jen Davis, who again is one of the top agents, the buyers agents in the industry, and they go through all the like scripts and dialogues and the processes and procedures and when they're signing it and how they're getting people in the office and all the stuff that you need to know to operate your business as a business in the buyer division. So I'd highly, highly, highly encourage you get registered for that and just be on the lookout for the upcoming events that Kari's offering.
I have a quick question if you'll take another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something I've been running into a lot, which I keep hearing that I've been out scripted, which kills me, right? Kills my heart. But people aren't willing to even open up enough to give me any objections or give me any obstacles where I can provide a solution or a strategy around it. Is that something where it is me being out scripted potentially, or is that just like an unqualified buyer where I should move on to the next one? And then maybe do soft touches. I mean, they're still getting added and dripped on, but how much time would you spend on that lead, or would you just keep it moving?
I mean, I would say keep it moving. I think that, anytime that somebody says that they're interested in property and they've got their hand up, obviously, it's the analogy of the retail store. I love to say where, basically you walk into any type of a store, someone walks up to you and they say, "Hi, how are you? What are you looking for today?" And you say, "I'm just looking." So that's someone that I think that you put in your pipeline and you keep engaged and in touch with, but obviously they're not an A buyer because they're not telling you what their motivation is. And so you can't meet them where they are if they're not going to share with you. And this is why right now, the biggest business that we're in right now is a pipeline business. We're building our pipeline. That person will transact, but it may be 6 months from now or a year from now. And it just depends, are you going to be the person that's, you know, in that retail store when they're ready to go into a fitting room and they're saying, hey, I need a fitting room. Are you the one that's going to be around, right? That's your one goal, is to stay in front of them. And you just have to slowly, I mean, there's some people that it's taken me a long time to get where I am with them, but they have to build trust in you. And so just stay engaged with them, put them on a drip system, and stay in contact.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
and
much.
and Jessica, in business, everything happens gradually, then suddenly. And so to Kari's point, gradually remaining will suddenly create a relationship that you thought you might have lost a long time ago or never really gained originally. Just stay consistent with the actions, trusting the process. You could also explore and interrogate your reality of your scripting, or the skilled conversations. Sorry, we don't say scripting anymore. They are the conversations that you practice. Attempt to ask more direct and or open-ended questions versus yes or no and or telling. Remember, you know, God gave you one mouth and two ears. Every time you open your mouth, you can ask a question or make a statement. We get paid in direct proportion to the level of questions in which we ask. So get skilled on asking great questions and then shutting up and listening to the responses. It's a really powerful practice. So you can and should inspect or interrogate your reality with your skill, and then create a measurable improvement plan to practice and role play.
Thank you for that.
It's really good.
Yeah. All right, Claudia, take us home. You got your hand up. Let's get one more question or aha or takeaway, and then we'll wrap it up.
So the slides that you had were very basic, and you gave a lot of content that wasn't in the slides. You don't like it to be called scripts. I would call it scripts, you know, but all the conversations that you were modeling for us, if you want to call it that, is it possible to get them in written form?
There's a lot of great conversation books, you know, it's hard to say not script books, though, conversation books that are out there that a lot of organizations have created online for you. I mean, this just takes years and years of practice and being in the trenches, doing the work with our peers. So I personally don't have anything that I can hand over to you, though, Claudia, if you wanted to reach out to me, I can certainly forward and share with you exactly what I do have for my organization. It'd be my pleasure to share. I'll drop my email in the chat here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, anybody can feel free to shoot me a line and I'll share it. We're open book, so we'll share whatever we have. It's our pleasure.
Well, and I think this is being recorded too. So, I mean, you could probably just do the recordings back out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carlos.
The transcriptions are a wonderful thing these days. Copy and paste, baby. Transcribe it. Thank you, everybody, for staying, playing along. We so are grateful for you and this community that we have through Keller Williams and MAPS Coaching. Happy holidays to y'all. Thanks, Kari.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Hey, guys, I have one quick question. Are you guys going to have a recording of this or no?
Yes.
It'll go out, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
pleasure.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.